January 15th, 1941. Paris, France. The dim glow of gas lamps flickers over the cobblestone streets of a city that had once been a beacon of freedom and culture. But now, under the shadow of Nazi occupation, is a city of silence, of oppression, and of hidden resistance. The air feels thick with the weight of the unknown, as though every step a person takes could lead to a trap, or worse, a betrayal. And yet, amidst this suffocating atmosphere, inside one of the city's most renowned concert halls, there is music. A grand piano sits center stage under a soft spotlight. Its polished wood reflects the eerie stillness of the room. The seats, once filled with eager music lovers, are now occupied by the menacing presence of Nazi officers and collaborators, their faces a mix of indifference and disdain. They sit stiffly, their eyes fixed on the lone figure at the piano. The man's name is Victor Rubinstein, a man whose virtuosity on the piano is matched only by the secret he harbors beneath his fingers. As his hands hover over the keys, the weight of the moment presses down on him like a 100-ton stone. Each note he plays is more than just music. It is a risk, a gamble, a defiant act in the face of overwhelming danger. Rubinstein's career had once been one of extraordinary promise. He had been a celebrated pianist, known for his performances across Europe, his fingers dancing across the keys with the kind of ease that left audiences breathless. But now, in 1941, under the cold gaze of his oppressors, he is a prisoner. Not in the traditional sense, he is not behind bars or in a labor camp, but he is a prisoner nonetheless, trapped by circumstance and by his own desperate need to survive. His performance tonight is not just for the Nazis who sit in the audience, their uniforms crisp, their faces cold. It is for the resistance, those who still cling to hope, those who believe that a small act of defiance can eventually lead to the breaking of a great chain. As his hands find the keys, Rubinstein's mind races, torn between the art of his music and the danger of his situation. The piano, a symbol of his genius, has become both a shield and a weapon. Every melody, every chord, is an encoded message, a silent communication to the underground resistance. To the unsuspecting Nazis, it is simply a concert. But to those listening in the shadows, it is a lifeline, a map, a signal that the fight against tyranny is still alive. No one can know who the informant is, not even the resistance itself, for fear that someone might betray him to the Gestapo. The first notes drift through the hall, soft and melancholic. Rubinstein's fingers glide over the ivory keys with practiced grace, his heart pounding in his chest. The tune is classical, a piece by Chopin, familiar to the ears of the officers who, though indifferent to its true beauty, recognize it as a mark of the pianist's skill. But Rubinstein isn't playing it for them. He's playing it for a select few who know how to listen. Hidden within the ebb and flow of the melody are subtle shifts, slight deviations from the standard composition, deliberate changes in timing, in harmony. These are the markers. These are the clues. Only the trained ear, only those with the knowledge of the underground movement, can decode them. And so, his fingers move with precision, playing for an audience that cannot hear the true significance of the music, an audience that does not know that they are being played in ways far more dangerous than they can imagine. But each note he plays comes at a cost. Rubinstein knows that he is walking a razor's edge. The Nazis who occupy Paris have no tolerance for disobedience, and yet they are unaware of the web of resistance that thrives beneath the surface of their control. Rubinstein is one of the many people who quietly defy them every day, hidden in plain sight, offering what little rebellion they can in a city suffocated by fear. His music, once a joyous celebration of life, now feels like a weapon, a quiet, deadly act of defiance that could cost him everything. His thoughts flicker back to the day the Nazis arrived. The Blitzkrieg had been swift, tearing through Europe like wildfire. France, once a proud nation of resistance and revolution, had fallen too quickly. The leaders of the country had surrendered, and the French government had made deals with the Germans. But the streets of Paris were not empty of defiance. Rubinstein had been there, watching, waiting for his moment. As the occupation deepened, he had made contact with the resistance, offering his skills, his knowledge, and his position within the cultural elite. They needed someone who could move freely through the city, someone whose actions would not raise suspicion. The piano was the perfect tool, the perfect cover. But there was something even more dangerous than the Nazis in that concert hall tonight. It was the silence that came after each note, the quiet moments when Rubinstein wondered whether his music would be enough to fool them, to keep the resistance safe. The Nazis might have been brutal, but they were not blind. They could catch whispers. They could sense subversion, and they would not hesitate to kill anyone who betrayed them. But Rubinstein had no choice. He had to play. The first piece ends, and the silence in the room is palpable. Rubinstein takes a deep breath, his hands resting on the keys. He looks out over the sea of faces. The officers are speaking amongst themselves now, their voices low, but it is impossible to miss the occasional glance, the subtle nods of approval. They are satisfied. He has done his job, but to Rubinstein, it feels like an eternity has passed. Sweat beads on his forehead, and his heart is hammering in his chest. He wipes his palms on his trousers, an involuntary gesture, and prepares to begin the next piece. This one will be even more dangerous. The music he is about to play carries a far greater risk. It is not just a tune, it is a message, a warning. He begins again, this time with more purpose, the music flowing from his fingers in a deliberate, almost calculated way. The notes are sharp, intense, filled with a sense of urgency that mirrors the growing tension in the room. The officers shift in their seats, but they do not suspect. They are too wrapped up in their own superiority to recognize the danger lurking just beneath the surface. The melody weaves through the room like a thread, guiding the listener's emotions, directing them towards the climax, just as Rubinstein directs his own fear into the music. Each note is like a step closer to his doom. The resistance, those hidden agents who rely on these codes, are waiting for the signal. They're listening, watching for the signs in the music. Will they catch it? Will they be able to act in time? And then, as the piece draws to a close, Rubinstein plays one final chord, a sound that hangs in the air like a question mark, unresolved, suspended. It is a moment of tension that leaves the audience breathless, their minds caught in the briefest of pauses before the applause begins. But Rubinstein does not feel the relief of applause. He does not even hear it. His mind is elsewhere, on the underground movement, on the people whose lives hang in the balance of his next move. He stands, nodding respectfully to the Nazis in the front row, their eyes cold and calculating, oblivious to the man who has just outsmarted them. As he steps off the stage, his heart still pounding, Rubinstein is aware that the game is far from over. Every performance is another step deeper into the web of resistance, another chance for discovery, another night where he risks everything. But as he walks backstage, he allows himself a moment to breathe, to remember that, for a brief moment, his music has been more than just a performance. It has been a message, a symbol of hope, and above all, a defiant refusal to bow to the occupation that seeks to crush all that he holds dear. The question that lingers, though, is how long can he continue? How long before his double life is uncovered, and the cost of his resistance becomes too great to bear? April 3rd, 1942. The underbelly of Paris is alive with whispers, the heartbeat of a city that refuses to submit to the boot of occupation. In the shadows of the grand boulevards, hidden away in the labyrinth of alleys and basements, a network of resistance fighters moves with the careful precision of a well-oiled machine. They are a collective of individuals, students, workers, intellectuals, artists, each one driven by a singular goal: the liberation of their city, their country, from the iron grip of the Nazis. And amidst them, in this world where secrecy is paramount, there is one man whose contribution stands alone, unique in its quiet courage and profound danger. Victor Rubinstein, the pianist. To most of Paris, Rubinstein is simply a performer, one of the last great virtuosos of the old world. He plays for the Nazis, yes, but in the secret of his music, he is also playing for the resistance. The piano, once an instrument of art, has become his weapon of choice, a means of communicating with those who are fighting back in the shadows. The messages are subtle, encoded into the very fabric of his performances. Minor changes to familiar pieces, alterations to timing, shifts in melody. It is a delicate art, one that requires an intimate understanding of music, of the enemy, and of the resistance's needs. The risk, of course, is monumental. One wrong note, one misstep, and his secret would be exposed. But for Rubinstein, there is no turning back. Each performance is an act of defiance, a small victory in a war that is far larger than any individual. The piano that Rubinstein plays in the concert halls of Paris is no longer just a musical instrument. It is a tool for survival. The coded messages he embeds in his performances are not simply signals. They are lifelines for the resistance, an encrypted language that speaks to those who know how to listen. To the officers in the audience, the music sounds like nothing more than another elegant concert. To the resistance, however, it is an essential form of communication. Rubinstein's artistry becomes the bridge between the two worlds, the world of occupiers who believe they control everything, and the world of those who refuse to surrender, who fight back in ways the Nazis cannot imagine. It is during one such concert that Rubinstein's dual life comes to a head. The resistance, desperate for information, needs to move a critical cache of weapons hidden deep within the city. Rubinstein, aware of the urgency, understands that his next performance must be more than just music. It must be a signal, an announcement that the operation is underway. The Nazis, oblivious to the resistance's true plans, have no idea that their presence in the concert hall tonight is a mask for something far more dangerous. As Rubinstein steps onto the stage, the weight of the evening presses heavily upon him. The audience, a mix of Nazi officers and French collaborators, sit in the darkened hall, their eyes fixed on him. They are unaware of the battle that rages beneath the surface, the one that is being waged not with guns or bombs, but with the subtlety of a piano's keys. Rubinstein takes a moment to adjust to the atmosphere, to steady his nerves. The hall is as it always is, opulent, cold, and distant. But tonight, it feels different. There's an electric tension in the air, a sense of anticipation that pulses through the room. He sits at the piano, his hands resting lightly on the keys, his mind sharp. The first notes he plays are calm, measured, and familiar. It is a piece by Bach, a composition known to the Nazis and the collaborators in the audience. They are complacent in their enjoyment, nodding in approval, some even tapping their feet in time with the music. But Rubinstein is not playing for them. He is playing for a network of resistance fighters who are scattered throughout the city, waiting for the signal. The changes in his playing are small, almost imperceptible to the untrained ear, but to those who understand the code, they are clear. A shift in the tempo, a subtle change in the harmony, a few extra beats in places where there should be none. Each change is a piece of the puzzle, a piece that moves the resistance closer to their goal. As the music progresses, Rubinstein's mind drifts briefly to the many times he has played this very piece under very different circumstances. There have been concerts in the great halls of Europe, in cities filled with laughter and applause. He had once performed for the royal families of Europe, for the finest minds in classical music. Back then, the piano had been a symbol of culture, of beauty, of civilization. Now, it is a symbol of survival, of resistance. The transformation is not lost on him. The beauty of the music is still there, but now it is tinged with the raw edges of a world in crisis. Every note feels heavier, more urgent, like a plea for mercy in the face of an unstoppable force. As the piece concludes, Rubinstein pauses. The silence in the room is thick, and for a moment, it feels like time itself has stopped. The officers in the audience remain seated, their faces unreadable. Rubinstein stands, bows slightly, and then takes his place at the piano again. This time, the music he plays is different. It is not Bach. It is not a piece that any of the Nazis or collaborators would recognize. It is his own composition, a piece he has created specifically for this night, for this purpose. It is bold, filled with urgency, filled with defiance. The melody rises and falls like waves crashing against the shore, each rise a moment of hope, each fall a reminder of the danger they all face. The resistance fighters scattered throughout the city, listening from their hidden places, hear the message loud and clear. The operation is a go. The weapons are being moved. The Nazis are none the wiser. To them, it is just another concert, another night of music that means nothing. To the resistance, however, it is everything. Rubinstein's coded performance has given them the green light. It is a moment of triumph, a moment of victory that comes at great personal cost. But even as Rubinstein plays, even as the notes rise and fall in the darkened hall, he knows that the risks are only escalating. The Nazis are beginning to tighten their grip on Paris. The raids are becoming more frequent, the curfews longer, the collaborators more ruthless. The resistance is fighting a battle on all fronts, and Rubinstein is caught in the middle. The piano is his only means of communication, his only weapon. But there are days when he wonders how long he can continue this dangerous charade. How long before the Gestapo catches on to his double life? Before the music he plays condemns him to a fate far worse than death? He does not have the answers. All he knows is that for as long as he can, he will continue to play, to send those hidden signals through the strings of the piano. The fate of the resistance, the fate of his city, depends on it. With each performance, he risks more than just his life, but the lives of those around him, the lives of those he loves, the lives of the men and women who fight in the streets and alleys, who are hiding in plain sight. They all depend on him. They depend on the music. The piece concludes, and the hall erupts into applause, the sound jarring and hollow in Rubinstein's ears. He stands and bows, acknowledging the officers in the front row with the practiced grace of a man who has performed this routine hundreds of times before. The music may have stopped, but the message it carried is far from over. Rubinstein leaves the stage, his heart still racing, his mind still focused on the task at hand. As he walks backstage, he feels the weight of his secret pressing down on him once again. But for now, there is a moment of triumph. The resistance has what they need, and the enemy remains unaware of the man who has been playing them all along. But as Rubinstein steps into the shadows, he knows the game is far from over. The music will play again, and with it, so will the risks, the dangers, and the hope. November 12th, 1944. The liberation of Paris is a day many have longed for, a moment that will forever be etched in history as the city shakes off the chains of occupation. The streets are filled with the sound of marching soldiers, the cheers of citizens, the rattle of old rifles as resistance fighters take their places in the streets. The Nazis are retreating, their once unfathomable presence now reduced to a memory, their banners falling in defeat. And yet, beneath this victorious din, amid the frenzy of parades and celebrations, one truth lingers in the air, unspoken but undeniable. For many, the war is over. For others, it has only just begun. Victor Rubinstein, the pianist who had played for the occupiers while secretly aiding the resistance, stands in the shadows of the city that once loved him, a city now free from its tormentors, yet still bound by the chains of forgotten heroes. He watches the celebrations from a distance, his face hidden behind the familiar guise of a man who has seen too much, who has sacrificed too much. His role in the underground movement, his covert efforts to help the resistance through music, have been instrumental. But as the city erupts into jubilant chaos, Rubinstein feels an overwhelming emptiness, a void that the music of victory cannot fill.